there's so much pressure with adaptations of all kinds because you have your fans, your crazy fans over here, which is Arzu and I. You got maybe casual fans who've seen it once and was like, yeah, that was great. Then you have the general population who has no prior knowledge, who just maybe knows the Wizard of Oz in this instance. And you have to please like all three of these groups. And honestly, this one time, I think they did.
I think they did too. I think the thing that serves them best, we were kind of talking about this a couple days ago, you and I, was that they are not shy about the fact that Wicked is a musical. They don't pretend it's not a musical the way Mean Girls did. They advertised it like a musical. Like the Wonka movie with Timothée Chalamet was delightful. It was very cute. It was not advertised as a musical. I knew it was a musical just from like reading about it, but you wouldn't know that looking at the trailer. This one led with the music, ashamed of their own theatricality. They're not trying to be ironic about it. They are wholeheartedly embracing what it is and just inviting you to, we've made this joke a couple times already, but they're inviting you to like hold space with that. Like they're inviting you to just like join them in this unironic, larger than life story that they're telling. And because of that, it works.
Definitely. And a lot of times people see musicals come out and they fail and they blame the genre when in fact there's so many other things. Like I can just go off the top of my head, not to be a hater, but Mean Girls, the girl who played Katie had a very weak voice. She was not meant to be musical theater. Dear Evan Hansen, again, badly cast. That man looked 40 and to see teenagers. It was very...
Sorry, the fact that like, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. I almost called him Evan. That's not his name.
Ben
Platt. The fact that Ben Platt was like, 25, 26, playing like 16 and it looked wrong. Jonathan Bailey is like 40, playing 18, and we're all like, that's fine. It works.
Except they're not, they don't have to be 18.
Well, like college age though, because they're all in university.
Yeah, but we don't know exactly, like that's the thing with Wicked, is they could be like anywhere in their 20s.
That's true. That's true.
But at least in my mind, because
it's funny how willing we are to accept that. But then again, they're not trying to make him look 18, 19 years old. They're like, he just looks how he looks and he's a student here. And then another thing about just unironically, like this is just what he looks like. And he's at this school and we're like, cool, we're here with it. Like we're here for it.
Also, Ariana and Cynthia are both in their 30s as well. So when you put other people who are around the same age, it looks less weird because it's like, oh no, they're contemporaries.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. And the thing is with the Wicked musical, at least, I always assumed maybe it was a very later schooling, maybe like a grad school or something like that, you know?
When I saw it on stage, like obviously the actors were in their 20s or whatever, but they looked very young. Like they looked younger than the cast of the movie does. So I was like about 18 at the time. So I just kind of assumed they were supposed to be my age, but obviously played by people a bit older. But I think, like you said, because they're all contemporaries, it also doesn't really matter how old they are. Yeah. They're all just out on their own. And that's it.
And then in Act 2, in Part 2, they'll be years older.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing. And yeah, so bad casting is another issue that in musicals have. Here's Russell Crowe. Les Mis. Oh, sorry, I had something in my throat.
Yeah, just a little something tickling your throat there.
Yeah, Russell Crowe. I appreciate you. I feel like we must be related somehow because my last name's Call, his last name's Crowe. You know,
you're a secret cousin.
We're tied together in some way. And he's a good singer with his like rock band, but he is not a musical singer.
No, I like that you brought up Les Mis because Les Mis and Kat, one thing that they both very famously did was having everybody like sing on stage, like sing live in the recording, and that's the recording you hear. And this is something else we were talking about before was I think a story came out that the cast of Wicked was like singing on set because it like really helps them get in the zone and it helps them like play out the scene. And I totally get that. And I also get that Broadway actors are singing live, 8 nights a week. But when they sing live 8 nights a week, they're singing the song once. Not the same song for 3 hours, like stop and start. And I think that's another thing that makes such a big difference is they're not trying to make it like gritty and realistic and all the sound is diegetic. Like it is so obviously a recording that they're singing to. But that's okay because that's the cleanest version of sound. Because when Alphaba on stage is singing Defying Gravity, she's not hurtling through the air at like 40 miles an hour. She's stationary, which can allow for that the same way Cynthia's voice allows for that because she's in a recording booth, like.
And I saw a lot of behind the scenes footage, and Cynthia did a lot of her own stunts. So she,
So she's not going to deliver that vocal performance while also doing a stunt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people might have thought Ariana Grande was stunt casting, which musicals, again, have a bad habit of doing with movies. And they even do this on Broadway now. They'll bring in a TikTok star or a TV star with a big name or at least a big following to come in. And you can compare it to like somebody did like a TikTok of stunt casting on Broadway versus actual Broadway stars. And like the difference is night and day. And I will use the example, Swifties, I am one of you. I will just say.
This is what gets us canceled.
I know, even though I am like a giant Swiftie concert, all her CDs, I love her. But her casting in Cat was very much a stunt casting because our girl cannot dance that well. Our girl is not a musical singer. She is the songwriter of a lifetime. She is amazing. But her strength is not musical theater. That's not what she was trained to do. Ariana Grande is also a pop star, but also musical theater.
In musical theater.
Yes. She was actually on Broadway.
The show's called like 13 or something?
Yes.
Yeah. She was, that's where she got her start before she ever popped up on TV.
Yeah. And you can see her in the Fox did Hairspray Live.
Mm-hmm.
And she plays Penny. She did a fantastic job there.
And the fact that Kristen Chenoweth played her mom.
Oh, no.
Not her mom.
No.
But Kristen Chenoweth was in it too. Sorry, I got Penny and Amber mixed up. But Kristen Chenoweth was also in it, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah. And I think just having both Cynthia and Ariana just being very passionate about it and understanding the gravitas of these roles, there's been a lot of jokes about them crying and interviews being very emotional. And I was kind of like, oh, they're overselling it and everything. But after actually seeing it, I'm like, I get it. I get it.
I think my spiciest take is, given the choice, I would listen to this soundtrack again more than the original.
Wow. That's going to get us canceled.
That's what gets us canceled. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the way they performed it. I don't know if it's recency, or some of it might be recency bias. I don't know if it's just the way I saw it performed is resonating with me differently. But it's hitting in a way that the Broadway soundtrack like didn't as much as I enjoyed it, because I listened to the soundtrack often, but it hit me differently. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing, again, why some musical adaptations fail is because they don't adapt to a film medium. And I feel like there's some subtlety to both Cynthia and Ariana's performances, and also Jonathan's as well, that don't make it quite like they're not singing to the cheap seat. Let them have more emotional range when they're not just trying to project. So I think that does have Defying Gravity is so powerful in live and in this movie, but there is something different in this movie with Defying Gravity.
I think what's different for both, for Cynthia and Ariana, for Alphaba and Glinda, what's different in this movie is what's different in any movie when it's done well, is that they are using their faces in a way that you just can't on stage, because the people in the fifth balcony can't see you. But No One Mourns the Wicked, the way she keeps saying she died alone, the way she keeps saying that, her mouth is smiling, her eyes aren't.
Something that was much easier to notice in the movie versus on theater, like you were saying, is who is singing what parts, and no one mourns the wicked.
Mhm.
And it's very specific that Galinda is not singing, she was wicked, she's evil, I'm glad she's dead part. She's singing
Wicked.
generally,
Alone.
wicked people.
Generally speaking, the
Yeah.
wicked are lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the eye work, like you were saying.
Thinking about it again, because I just came from watching it a second time, and the difference, and like obviously this makes sense from a character perspective, but the difference in Cynthia Erivo's performance between like The Wizard and I and Defying Gravity, like just in the way she sounds so much younger in The Wizard and I. And it's only supposed to be like a few months difference at most. But it's just this like optimism on her face and in her mannerism. And like that does come across somewhat on stage. But again, there are cheap seats in the theater. You can only see so much. But in the theater, like in the movie theater, it's all right in front of you. And then her body language and all of that is just really carried into the vocal performance too.
Another point is when you're doing it on Broadway, you're doing it 8 times a week, every performance is different. While if you're doing it for a movie, everything is very specific. Everything is this one take. And I feel like they can be more focused on certain things versus on stage.